Hello and welcome once again to Bonga Futaa. Now you know this is the show that will take you right behind the scenes to find out what's going on. Now you've heard about the elections. No, I'm not talking about the US elections. I'm talking about the FKF elections. Now those ones are drawing as much reaction, especially to Kenyans, as the US elections are drawing. And we are going out to seek the presidential candidates themselves, to talk to them, to find out why they want to be part of Kenyan football. We spoke to the incumbent president just the other time, and now we want to see the challengers. What are they bringing into the game? Why do they want to be there? And so we have decided to seek one Herbert Mwachiro. Wow, you probably know him very well. He likes to be called Mwachiro. But you know he's looking for votes, so Mwachiro would still do if you can call him that. A man who probably you know better in rugby. But you know what? He has also served as a Secretary General of FKF, albeit for a short time. He was there, and he needs to tell us exactly what went on at that time. Let's start from there, Herbert. Thank you for agreeing to talk to us once again, and good luck in the elections. But let's go to the issues first.
Thank you, Bernard.
You were the Secretary General for about 6 months.
I was at the FKF for about
How was
6
it
months.
and why did you leave?
It was a good experience for me to get into the management of football, the top management. Probably my ideas at that time were not consistent with the ideas of the management present. So we agreed to part
ways, on mutual agreement. Yeah. Was it a fallout? Is it something they didn't like? Is it something you didn't like?
I guess we had two different styles of management. Having been very much in the corporate sector myself for over 20 years, I had a different way and a different vision of wanting to look at things. But I guess for me that was good because it got me thinking on how I would do it if I was the one in charge. At that time, I wasn't the one in charge. I wasn't the immediate policy maker.
Could it be that you wanted to be in charge, and that's why you had to leave, because you wanted to be in charge, not waiting for a chance like this one to then campaign to be in charge?
No, I wanted to.
I know you as an ambitious person, you know.
Ambition is no. Every man must have ambition, but I guess I wanted to push my ideas that would have changed the picture of football then.
And that didn't work.
No, that did not work, and that's why we're here with you, Bernard.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some things that are going on before we even get into discussing what you want to change. There is a new rule that says you must have been in football for about 2 years for you to be able to contest a position within the federation. What's your claim to being in football?
Actually, I haven't had a bother with that rule. Don't forget that, Bernard, I was in the FKF administration.
As Secretary General.
Yeah,
yes.
before
I
that,
guess then that knocks off that rule for you, does
Before that, I was doing the CHAN administration. I was the director for CHAN as we were looking to host CHAN. And at the same time, don't forget, I still sit on the Confederation of African Football Youth Committee, and I'm in my second term there. So I've been there for the last 4 years. So
you are in continental football?
I'm in football.
And these local rules cannot really apply to you, can they?
Football is football. Yeah.
I want us to discuss things that are bedeviling football first, and then we can talk about what you're putting together as a campaign. But we seem to be in a very difficult situation in Kenyan football. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about sponsorships. Let's start even with the sports fund. What's your take on the sports fund? What do you think it should be doing if you were in a position to talk about it?
I think the sports fund itself, we need to understand its operations. We need to understand the rules and regulations that guide it as sports people. And I think that there has to be a consultative meeting with different federations and the sports fund, and so that both can be on the same plane. Because this is a sports fund. How does it help sports fund? Is it just one for giving out money?
Actually, the question I'm asking is, do you know how it's operating? Or how will you be able to derive from it if you become president?
For me, I would engage them. I will engage them with what we want to do. I would like to know exactly their parameters of support for sports, because one cannot rely on them only as for monetary support. But if they are going to deal with national teams, if they are going to give us money for youth programs, and especially even for special interest groupings like for women's football, I'll be happy to know, and what are the caps that they would set out. So for me, I would like to know how and how much they would be able to give, and on how often. because that is a key support, especially for me. The sportsman comes in place, especially on national teams and the youth development.
What if
That
they
is
don't
key.
give you answers? Because that seems to be the complaint, that people are not getting answers as to these questions. Where is the money? Where is it going?
Well, if they don't give us answers, Bernard, we will move on and we'll look at other avenues of support for partnership.
And I think we should move on then from that as well. When you are a player, it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, the support usually should come when you are a player as well. You played rugby for a very long time. Were you happy with how players were treated? Do you think they should earn more money? Do you think there is good effort in sponsorships? How would you change that so that this money trickles to players?
I think first and foremost, Bernard, we need to repackage how we look at sports in this country. We must prioritize sports as one of the key pillars of society. Sports is a big industry. It is the 4th largest industry in the world. We need to ensure that sports in Kenya is repackaged so that it is a positive contributor to the GDP of the economy. At the same time, administrators must be able to do a value proposition and evaluate how much worth sports is. When I talk to a partner, when I go to a sponsor, I should be able to tell him, this is, this is what we have for football. These are our projections. This is how we value, and this is what the programs that we want. We have to have a definitive pattern or a definitive plan for the repackaging so that we can present the sport to our partners. I'm calling them partners more than just sponsors, because sponsorships lead to partnerships.
What is it that is being done differently right now that you feel then should change? How is the current, well, the federation that was there before packaging the product?
Well, if we have a lack of corporate sponsors, if the top blue chip companies in this country are not engaging with the #1 sport in the country, then there's a problem. Yeah, that means either the message to them is not being presented well, or they don't trust, or they don't like what they see within the current framework of what is football at present. So there is need to repackage, and that's why I keep talking about repackage, re-engineer, present it nicely again so that it can be attractive. Football is big business. And I can tell you for a fact, weekends come up, people are going to watch the English Premier League, with all abandon. I want us to watch Kenyan soccer with the same energy, with the same desire, with the same liking.
You know, you brought in a very interesting aspect about trust. You know, why do you think the blue chip companies don't trust our football? They don't trust Kenyan football. How are you going to make them trust Kenyan football?
Because at present, Bernard, I think we are very low on governance. When you look at stories about football, it's more negative than positive. We need to change that. We need to give a positive spin. We need to have a positive outlook on soccer. Immediately we touch soccer, we don't want to hear about mismanagement or doubts about misuse of money or non-transparent issues on how money has been spent. No, there has to be a high index of integrity. There has to be a high index of accountability. And that brings about trust. So I'm saying we need to raise the bar when it comes to governance. That is only when, on governance and accountability, that is only when that sponsors and partners, and other well-wishers will then come back to the game because it will have a more positive outlook.
Okay.
You have been in football for very long. You know we've been through some good times and now we're on some low times.
Many people that I've spoken to about what's going on in football at the moment are saying the problem is strictly money. How are you going to get this money? And how much money do you think would be enough to be able to keep our football running?
It's not only money. It is the environment with which our football is operating. That has to change. And it comes with governance. It comes with better management. It comes with building trust and accountability. Only then will the money start flowing. Will the partners see that there's a win-win situation to them? We have to give confidence. Even you, Bernard. Anytime you spend your money, you're confident with what you're spending your money on because you believe in the return on investment. We have to ensure that we build the trust. We have to lift our football from a negative view to a positive view. Money will come as long as we have good governance and we have a plan.
Okay.
And that I'm telling you for a fact.
And that you have. You have the plan?
That I have.
Which you don't want to unveil. Are you going to unveil the plan at some point?
At some point, I'll have to unveil the plan.
Okay.
But for me, these are the things I want to bring to football.
All right.
Because if football gets it right, then the rest of sports in this country will get it right.
Okay, that sounds like the campaign mode we are in already, but I want to give you a chance to get into the campaign mode on the second part of this program. But the first part, I really want us to deal with the current issues. Now, you know that we have an outfit called the Kenyan Premier League Limited, a company called the Kenyan Premier League that runs the Kenyan football. And this was born out of wrangles that were there again before in football. Now, there's supposed to be a transition between this Kenyan Premier League company, which is owned by the Premier League teams, to FKF. What is your thought about how that should be handled?
My thoughts, if it were me, and I know that this contract is coming to an end, I would have sat down with the KPL management, from the governing council and the secretariat. Sit down, because I believe within the MOU there is an avenue for discussion. There's a joint executive committee that should have been meeting to have the affairs.
Which is not currently constituted.
I don't think, it meets, or has met for quite a while.
Or let's say there's another one. Yes. There's another joint committee that is overseeing this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about how this new one is operating, but all I can say is there should have been discussion between KPL and FKF. They should have had an analysis and a review of the gains of Kenyan football under the management of Kenya Premier League over the last 10 years. Because KPL has been there. They've been doing the business of running football. So there's something they know.
There's a little bit of distrust between the two, between the KPL and between the FKF.
Now you've got it. And remember, when KPL came into being, it came into being when FKF at that time was in a very weak position. Over the years, the federation has also grown and stabilized. I think the movement from Nyamwea to Mwendwa was a big step in streamlining the management of football at present.
There was Hatimi somewhere in between, you must remember.
Hatimi was even before that, But remember, the coming of the Kenya Premier League, the company itself, was to streamline our top product, which is the Premier League. So they do know something. What should happen now is a review and possibly reforms, because I would like to initiate reforms in the way the Premier League is running at present. There are some things that I think that we can change for the betterment of the product. But rather than scrap it and start all over again, means we are taking our football again back.
There's every likelihood that there's not going to be a sit down, because the contract is expiring and FKF has made it clear they want to take over the running.
Yes.
Do you think they will have the capacity? Would you advise on that? If you took over the presidency, would you leave it to the KPL, or would you take it into FKF to manage it from there?
I would go with the blueprint that looks successful worldwide. La Liga, English Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, even the South African Premier League, PSL. These are models that are working. The top product is managed by an independent entity with mandate from the federation. That is where we need to look at it, because there are certain interests and certain commercial issues that suit the Premier League in its own desire. For me, I would see a better relationship. I would want to build a better relationship between the federation and the independent, because at the end of the day, it is us as a federation who will give the mandate to whatever Premier League body that will be running the Premier League. The benefit at the end of the day has to be for the clubs and the players in that league. They must be able to play a league, knowing that a league is well run, well managed, without challenges for them already in the club. And in this COVID times, the challenges are surely many.
And we are still having challenges as well in terms of talk about a sponsorship having come in. Some teams have taken what they were given, and some others have poured a lot of water on the validity of that sponsorship. I'm talking about the sponsorship from a company called BetKing to the Premier League teams. And a lot of people are saying they don't really believe it's real. There was no real launch. There was no, there's no tangible evidence, of this money coming from a real tangible sponsorship. What's your take on this?
Only Nick Mwendwa and his people can tell us the truth about that.
But the clubs have taken the money and they have confirmed the money is in their accounts.
They've received money, they have taken. But Bernard, Who wouldn't take at these times of difficulty? Who wouldn't take at these times when sponsors have shied away from the game and clubs need to pay their players and meet other administrative expenses? If they have received money, they have taken. But I think there's still a lot of doubt on how this sponsorship is going to work because the details are not in the open. Yeah, we're just being told.
The president has said the details are in the office. If anybody wants to go and peruse them in the office.
I think even when the sponsorship was being discussed, there should have been participation of club chairmen, and I don't think that was there.
But the FKF also says that when there was discussions on sponsorships on the KPL side, it was never brought to their table. That they also just went and did their own. I'm actually not putting you to task about the contract. I want your opinion on the situation.
On the situation, yes. I wouldn't do business like that.
Okay.
And it would scare any other sponsor who would want to come into football. Because the lack of transparency, the lack of openness in how this sponsorship is being managed or come about, especially with the key stakeholders, is a worrying sign. Any other sponsor would shy away from coming into football because of seeing what's happening there.
I would have been expecting that you, as the man who's challenging, you know, at the moment when the president releases a sponsorship, you release a sponsorship. The president releases another sponsor, you know, we have that culture in this country. You remove, I remove, you know, for the purposes of competition. Do you have anybody lined up? Have you spoken to any of them in case, because people do have strategic plans, in case you take over the presidency, to have somebody immediately on board? Or will you start running around when you already are president?
Let me tell you something, Bernard. I have a plan. I have a plan to run the game of football in this country. And within that plan, sponsorships and partnerships come into being. First and foremost, Bernard, let me get into office.
First to get into office. Yes. Okay, we'll be getting into that part of getting into the office almost immediately. I need us to talk about something that is troubling in this country as well. There's a federation, there is a KPL. There is the Sports Dispute Tribunal, there is the government in itself with the Ministry of Sports, and there is FIFA. How will you bring them together? FIFA says one thing, government says another thing, SDT rules another thing, KPL and the federation decide which of the decisions from SDT they're going to take. How are you going to, you know, get everybody to forge forward in one voice? Will you talk to FIFA? Is it the government? Will you talk to Sports Dispute Tribunal? Which is the way?
All these people you've mentioned, Bernard, are key stakeholders in the management of the game of football in Kenya. The government is a very key shareholder because the FKF itself is registered under the laws of this country, of which the government is the overseer. All right? So that's a partner, and there has to be constant engagement with the partner. The international legitimacy for football in this country comes from FIFA. We are an MA, we're a member association of FIFA. So that's another partner, all right? Until the election issue came about, all these partners were singing the same tune. All people were talking to each other.
You think it is politics?
It is only the issue of the election that has brought up differences. That's why even people have run to court. I'm all for inclusivity. And inclusivity means talking to the government, talking to FIFA, and talking to all stakeholders who really value and believe what football is in this country. Because we can't afford to stop playing football because of litigation issues or a lack of support from the government or even indifference from FIFA. No, these are all partners in the Kenyan football architecture. We have to bring them together. And for me, it is to bring all these parties down together.
Some people are thinking that there are specific decisions that are made only for Kenya by the World Football Governing Body. And only some members probably support that, and then some decisions are not made for some countries. And they're also saying that it's probably because FIFA itself really needs Kenya as a vote when they have their elections. What do you think about that?
I think that's a perception that is being peddled by people with various interests. For me, as I've said, Kenya is a member association of FIFA. We derive international legitimacy. So how we relate to them, how we talk with them, how they fit into the football development agenda is key. Yeah? There has been support from FIFA in the past. There has been support from the government, as always. And these three parties, FKF, the government, FIFA, have a tripartite relationship that we must build back. We must get it back going, yeah? Because no one can operate without the other.
Okay.
No one.
Brilliant. Herbert, Tower, Mwachiro. I always call him a tower of a man because of his giant size. But you obviously see how gentle he is when he's discussing matters policy. But that's just the gentle part of the show. Now we are coming to the real part of the show where he has to tell us why he feels is the best suited person to be able to run the federation in this country. We're coming to the nitty-gritty of it all. You keep it here on Bonga Futaa. We'll be back in a short while. Welcome back to the second part of our show, Bonga Futaa. Today we're talking to the presidential candidates. We want to find out what it is that they are going to bring to the game as well. And also we want to see what their manifesto is, apart from just challenging, because the position needs a challenger as well. And we have chosen to speak to Herbert Mwachiro, he says. Yes, he's been in soccer and he's been the Secretary General, albeit for a very short time as well. And he says he sits also on the CAF Youth Committee, which still stands. By virtue of that, then he doesn't need to be subjected to the rule that says you must be in soccer for at least 2 years. So we'll leave that for the moment, but let's go for the other questions now. Herbert, what makes you feel you're the best person suited for this job of FKF President?
Bernard, having been in sports over 30 years, a player, an official, an administrator, I feel that at this point in time I have the necessary experience to bring my skills into sports management. For me, managing football has been a dream. It has always been a dream. Having already been in the Chan committee as the director, having sitting in the CAF Youth Committee, and having been at the FKF for a short period of time, it basically has opened my eyes to see that we need better in this country. We need better in the management of football in this country. We need to turn football into an industry. It's just not a game. It's a big business, it's a big industry, and the primary player must be the beneficiary of a well-run football system in this country.
Mm-hmm. If we get into the nitty-gritty of it, you know, being the director of Chan was an appointment.
Yes.
This is an election.
Yes.
You need to talk to the delegates.
Yeah.
You need to talk to the stakeholders to be able to give you their votes. What is it with the delegate system? The incumbent says he has already more than half of the delegates unopposed in his favor. How are you going to beat that?
Well, I guess this is an election, and that's why it's called an election, because it is open until the day of the ballot. Yeah, the same stakeholders who the incumbent claims to have, and I'll say claims to have in his pocket, are the same people we're talking about. He has been through 2 flawed elections unopposed. That's why nobody opposed him, because they were flawed. At least this one has a measure of integrity that we now want to take him on and see the difference at the end of the ballot. The delegates are the people who decide. And it's very good that you brought up this issue of the delegates. Either these delegates are going to vote for building and making soccer again in this country, or we're going to be having this discussion 4 years from now. It's what I'm telling them. Vote for, not for yourself, but for the constituency they represent, because all these delegates are carrying responsibility of people below them. Yeah, because there are people who want football in this country.
Have you talked to them? Have you sold this to them? And what's their response?
It is an election, Bernard. I am talking to delegates, I have spoken to delegates, and I will continue to talk to delegates until the last day permissible before the election. We are in constant engagement, we're in constant communication. There is no way you can be in an election or want to win an election without talking to delegates, without talking to stakeholders, without being on the ground. And that is fact, Bernard, and that is where we are.
And even as we are talking, a good number of other candidates have pulled out, and they said it is flawed. And that's why they have withdrawn their candidature. If you go into it now and you get elected, will you not have been elected in what is a flawed election?
Bernard?
And the incumbent says, by the way, that he's going to use FIFA rules to run the elections.
Bernard, I cannot speak for the other candidates. We never came on a joint platform to campaign. We were never in an alliance. Everybody had their own plan of contesting these elections. I decided, having consulted my team and various other stakeholders, that I will contest. And that's why I submitted my papers as a legitimate candidate.
But do they have valid reasons for not participating, or would you rather the election went on?
As I told you, I do not know what the other candidates were thinking. If they wanted to submit, they would have submitted. It was a choice. Either you are in or you are out. But this process is going on, and I submitted my papers, and I am in. Unless something else were to happen, well, I don't know about the other candidates.
Okay, all right. Now, this is what is bothering me as well. There are a good number of court cases already, even before this election takes place. Is that not jeopardizing everything else that we might put in place?
One thing I'll say that if we had proper management of football in this country, if there wasn't any mismanagement, if there was no low governance threshold in the way football is run in this country, there would not be cases in court. There would be no need to go to the Sports Disputes Tribunal if the current or the outgoing federation bosses were running this football properly. Mismanagement or low governance threshold has brought cases at the SDT. For me, that is a problem. That is something we need to solve. Yeah, because if people were satisfied with the running of football in this country, then there would be no cases at the court. Some of the issues being raised have a lot of validity in place. Okay, some I think would have been better dealt with by sitting on a round table. There should have been a football stakeholders forum to remove some of the issues that are being raised at present. I myself.
Do you think then we should then this should be done even before the elections should take place? Should this roundtable discussion have been had before?
The opportunity to hold this roundtable discussion was there, and it should have happened. If Nick Mwendwa really was genuine in his efforts, he would have actually called a stakeholders forum. After all, he is the outgoing president. He has the mandate to do that, but he felt otherwise. As I said, everybody has a different style of management. Everybody has a different way of looking at things. I certainly would have called a stakeholders forum of legitimate and bona fide soccer stakeholders in order to ensure that whatever challenges and whatever things that inhibit the running of football in this country, we can sit down. After all, Bernard, this is a game of gentlemen, and people play soccer to enjoy themselves. And that's why I keep telling you, for me, inclusivity is a big thing. Inclusivity so that we can bring people of like-mindedness together. Former administrators, former coaches, former footballers, let's come together and build soccer. You know, former footballers have shied away from football because they are unable to relate with the management that has been in place. I am saying, there are people like Peter Dawo, Washington Muhanji, Mahmoud Abbas.
Are they interested in running the game?
They have been forced to be disinterested in being part and parcel of soccer. We're not saying that they come and run the game, but we're asking them to be part and parcel of the soccer family. Even JJ Masiga, you won't see him anywhere near a stadium now because they have a distrust of who is currently running football in this country at present. And I think you and I, having been in football for many years, know that to get people like that back, even to watching football, even to being in the stadium, even to be ambassadors, brand ambassadors for football, we need to have a well-managed, well-packaged, and well-run football industry in Kenya.
All right. Now, tell me something else about these elections that is really bothering me. Well, not really bothering me, but I want to hear a little bit about your manifesto as well. There's something that you're selling very heavily about soka mashinani, which just means grassroots soccer. And the talk in town is that now more than ever before, a lot has been done for grassroots soccer, and that women's soccer is up, youth soccer is up now. How differently are you going to put this, or how are you packaging your product for soka mashinani differently from what has already been put in place by FKF?
Bernard, soka mashinani is the essence of our football. Our football at present lacks quality. And we need to be able to develop youth. We need to be able to have development programs right from the grassroots. This country has got 47 counties, 290 sub-counties, 1,450 wards. I want to start my development of football, my soccer programs, right at the ward level, because that is where we are going to give every possible soccer player an opportunity. It is to create an opportunity around the whole country, not to make people feel that soccer is the preserve of a few others from certain areas. Yeah? I am saying, let us give every child an opportunity to be able to be part of the development of football in this country. I am looking at building soccer from age 5, moving up. Programs for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, moving on.
And the budget coming from FIFA or from the budget coming from the government? Because these are administrative counties that you have talked about.
This is a plan, and have sat down. We have looked at the figures that we need to run football in this country, and we are looking to ensure that Soccer Mashinani has resource mobilization very much entrenched.
So you have a fiscal plan also for
Absolutely.
this. What is
Absolutely.
it? Give it to me.
The details, I cannot give you the details. You come when I'm in office, and I will break it down for you. All right. But
So
the truth of the matter is,
I hope your office will be open to us.
No.
Yes.
This is a public organization.
Okay. All right.
It's a public organization, and transparency is key for me. Accountability is key for me. Soccer Mashinani starts with having coaches for 5-year-olds, having coaches for 6-year-olds, specialist coaches at every level to build the quality. As I've talked about quality, there is a lack of quality in our game at present. That's why we have a lot of foreigners wanting to come and play here. We have our big clubs looking to buy players from outside the country because within the country, the quality is lacking. No. If we build grassroots football and take it up, and this is a long-term plan, it's not a short-term plan.
It's a huge budget undertaking, first of all.
It is
a huge
short-term
budget
plan,
because to get the coaches at that level, you need specialized coaches as well for that level.
And that is the painstaking formula for building our quality, for building our soccer that we must take, Bernard. Yeah? We must ensure that we're able to develop quality right around the country, increase it for both men and women. Yeah? That's what I'm saying. We have to take it painstakingly to build quality of administrators, referees, coaches, and the players itself. It's an industry, Bernard. Let us expand it.
Yes.
Let us expand it.
Tell me something then about there's an issue about integrity, and you've mentioned that, and a good friend of mine once told me that if you have no integrity, nothing else matters.
But it's a fact, Bernard.
And he said, if you have integrity, nothing else matters.
Bernard.
So what is it about integrity that we keep mentioning in Kenyan football? What's the difficulty with integrity?
Because I don't want under my management that there are questions on use of resources that have been allocated. I don't want people to have doubt that they can trust me.
But this seems to be the perennial problem, and this seems to be the campaign tool. Literally, every time there's an election, they have misappropriated funds, this money has not been accounted for. What is it about integrity?
And if there were no issues, then people wouldn't talk about it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah, I think the FKF has not been transparent enough in really letting know issues relating to finance, resourcing, and utilization. FIFA this last week has actually released a report that has shown how much money has been coming to Kenya over the last 4 years, and it's massive. There's been a lot of support.
Has it been properly used, do you think?
I don't know. That is what we want to audit. That is what we want to see when we get into office. We are going to ensure that we are going to bring out the books where it's going to be an audit. There's going to be openness in the way money is being expended. And that is the only way we'll be able to get partners into this game. Yeah? People who want to know their shilling, their dollar, their pound, their euro, how it is utilized, we must show them. After all, we are an organization that receives funding. We do not generate our own money as yet. Yeah? We receive support. So that support that is received must be accounted for, and you must show it. And there has to be management principles in place on how to manage public money or money that has also come in from private sector. It is important, Bernard. Even that when you're given money, even if it's for a chama or a funeral, you must show the balance sheet.
You must account. A couple of years ago, the football in this country was being sold as a family event. A family afternoon out with what we call double headers, 2 matches being played in one afternoon. But something called hooliganism, came and ruined that altogether. What's your plan for security at the stadium? Because without that, you're not going to get the masses back to the stadium.
And you've said it. Football thrives on masses in the stadium. We need to bring people back to the stadiums. We need to bring families back to the stadium. Security is key. And this is a plan that I am going to put in place. There is need for, first and foremost, education amongst the clubs on the need for security and how we can actually sustain security in itself.
So you make it a club responsibility for security?
It is both a club, a federation, as well as a public responsibility. We are going to talk to the security agencies in this country. If you look at the developed world, you have specialized units that exactly deal with sports security. Here, I think we have not yet crossed that bridge.
We don't even have enough units for anything else.
Right.
So
but it's something that we can build on.
Yes.
Yeah. Negotiations with the IP or the IG, bringing him closer to the game, and other security agencies will be a start. Talking to the clubs on how even they themselves must take a measure of responsibility, and that's why we are looking about ensuring that databases of fans, club licensing. Club licensing talks about membership, fan members, that clubs must maintain those registers so that you know who your fans are, and so that you're able to identify these are our genuine members. And anybody outside, and anybody outside that is not part and parcel. And that's why the law...
And can't come to the stadium?
And that's why the law must take its course. People who are out to destroy private property must face the full wrath.
There's going to be a little bit of a challenge with that, because again, the stadium being a public place, you cannot stop me from going in there just because I'm not registered as a club member or a fan of any club. If I pay my entry, I will be able to enter.
I want to take you back on that.
Yes.
Systems in place, entry systems in place have to be brought in, because that is the way the world is looking at, is going on right now. Yeah, you do not just go. If you were to go to Germany, let's say you go to Dortmund, and you want to watch a game in Dortmund, you won't go in.
I can. Why not? No. I will go as a visitor. There are tickets for visitors.
There are no tickets, my friend.
Yes.
You have to have registered. You have to be on the fan ID system. You have to have ensured that you have.
So there's checks and balances for that.
Exactly.
Okay, but that's a little bit very elitist, and whether it will work in Kenya or not, because the clubs themselves are complaining that their members are not registering. But let me take you back a little bit.
No, Bernard.
Yeah.
Let me say one thing. Let us not make excuses for poor management. Yeah. Even clubs have to come to the party. Yeah, even the clubs must package themselves. And that's why I keep saying club licensing is very key. If we don't go through club licensing, especially for the top two levels, the Premier League and the National Super League, then our clubs will have failed the test of being able to contest even internationally. You know, for Gor Mahia or Bandari, the teams that recently represented the country outside in the continental competitions, they had to have a license, and albeit a provisional license, but it is a demand from FIFA and CAF at present. So we cannot, and if we're to make this an industry, a business, we have to transform our football mentality, our football organization, to ensure that we are developing football in the right direction.
Okay, but I hear you. But the world is grappling with resumption of sports. The world is grappling with how do we go back to the normal, or how do we accommodate the new normal. Now, you've probably read the guidelines that were given a couple of weeks back in this country about the resumption of sports, and especially soccer, which were recommendations, and they needed your input, my input, everybody else's input to be able to say how best we should do it. But some of this... some of the things that are supposed to be put in place, including facilities, including uniforms, including having 2 buses, including training in bits and pieces, seem to be really difficult for the Kenyan situation. How would you mitigate that?
I think this is where the discussion with all football stakeholders must come to fore. Because we know that there are challenges. Already we have financial challenges in sport in this country. Yeah? How do we get things back? These guidelines are for the health and benefit of the individual sportsman. Primarily, it is to take care of the health of the sportsman. That's why these guidelines are in place. So there is need for now sit-downs. There is need for discussions. There is need for rollout of plans with both with federations, clubs, the government, that is the Ministry of Sports, as well as the Ministry of Health. To ensure,
they have to be there as well.
To ensure that we can resume sports with the minimum protocols in place. It is also a costly affair.
It is.
This is why when I ask you now, when I tell you now, your friends at the Sports Fund must come in. When I look at what a country like DR Congo has done, they have invested, they have put in money to ensure that their clubs are able to come back into playing football, which means that the government is taking priority for sportsmen. Here, the government has, and we urge the government to put sportsmen as a priority in the resumption of their welfare. in the resumption of how they earn a living, in the resumption to ensure that COVID-19 does not affect them once they are back. It is important that this discussion is taken very seriously. It is important that resources are kept aside to inject it back into sports. And that's going to be the hard task. Those resources, bringing in those resources. How much resources do we need? Are we talking as we are waiting for the resumption of sports? Guidelines are one thing. How is it going to be implemented?
All right. Okay, Herbert. I want to give you 1 minute. I think that might just be enough for you to tell the country then what it is you are promising them if you become the president of Football Kenya Federation. Okay. This will entirely come from, I will not challenge it. It's just you and what you want to say it. And I think this is the best place to talk about it. Okay. I'll just lay back and give you 1.5 minutes. As my friend, I'll give you an extra half a minute.
Thank you, Bernard. Yes. I mean, having worked with you in the football industry for a while, I want to say, when I become president of FKF, I am looking to put trust back into football. I am looking to raise the bar in terms of management. Governance and sustainability are very key. We need to bring up the quality of football back in our game. I have 6 pillars for my football strategy. Among them is inclusivity. Amongst them is women's football. Women's football is very, very key for me. And we must make sure that we can develop the national teams, support the national teams, make sure that our competitions, our leagues, our tournaments have value in them so that they can be attractive to partners, okay? I want to ensure that youth and development, and this is where Soka Mashinani comes in. Soka Mashinani must start from the grassroots to build the quality of our football. And lastly, fiscal sustainability. And if I say it in Swahili, utumizi wa pesa vizuri. So that we can
use feather. Utumizi wa feather sounds more, more.
Utumizi wa feather. You must have been in there recently. Utumizi wa feather vizuri. Ni muhimu ili wafadhili na washiriki watuamini sisi kama viongozi wa mpira nchini Kenya kurudisha utamu wetu, kurudisha utamu katika mpira wetu. I am telling the delegates, the vote that you give is the vote for Herbert Mwachiro, simply because this is the man you can trust. This is the man who has a real football agenda. And remember, those people at the grassroots, wale ambao wako mashinani, wanawaangalia nyinyi wapiga kura, upige kura ile ya maana ili mpira wetu uwe na uzuri kabisa.
Well done, Herbert. I shall not challenge that at all. I think you have heard it from the man himself. He's promising the goodies. He's promising a different world altogether. He's promising to get soccer back into the industry it's supposed to be, presumably so that it can pay, and more so to the players themselves who are actually the product. Now, I don't know where you are going to put your vote. Of course, you might not be the delegate, but if you are, then you have a choice of where you're going to put your vote. If this was a national vote, then would you vote for the incumbent, or would you vote for Herbert Mwachiro? I leave that to you. You probably know a delegate who lives in your neighborhood. You can tell him about it as well. You can challenge him about it as well. But most importantly, make sure you vote for what makes football what it's supposed to be in this country. Herbert, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, my good friend Bernard.
Good luck to you.
Asante sana.
And we must also tell you, please remember us when you get to the big office. We'll be knocking.
I wish you were a delegate.
Well, we'll be watching out to see what happens, and hopefully we will get what has been promised to us, more so by Herbert Mwachiro, who wants to make it an industry, presumably for the development of football and the benefit of all those who are in football. When that time comes, we shall be celebrating. We'll do a follow-up when he gets into the big office. For now, thank you for keeping it here on Bonga Futaa. Hope to see you again next week when again we'll discuss what is happening in the world of soccer. Goodbye for now.